Hi, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you a few updates I made to our club's portable N-scale layout. I did a video about a year ago of building our club's N-scale layout. This is a 2-foot by 4-foot portable layout that we take to train shows, and we promote our club's scholarship program along with sales tables. The primary update was adding the Mud Creek Gates oil building, but I did a couple other things and I'll go through them first. The first thing I had to do was ballast the track. This was something that I hadn't gotten to last year when I was doing the upgrades. I used a mix of Woodland Scenic's fine gray and fine light gray. And in N-scale, this is about as close as you can get. When we were laying down our track on the Cork Roaded, we didn't exactly follow all the curves perfectly. There were a couple areas I had to cut away a little bit of the roadbed in order to keep the track centered. Now my process for putting down the ballast was I'd first put some glue along the outside edge and on the slope of the Cork Roaded. Then I'd use a damp brush to spread that around and sprinkle the ballast on it. Once that was dry, I'd spread ballast in between the rails, brush it off of the ties, spray it with alcohol, and then I'd dribble some Woodland Scenic's glue on it to hold it in place. Now where the ballast would come right up to the edge of our frame, I'd tape over the frame so that I had a clean edge on the ballast. I also had a crossing that I needed to bring the road up to, so I used Vallejo ground texture for that. And again, I taped off over the frame, and I had to put the ground texture on both sides. And I used a wet brush to spread it out, and then once it was dry, I covered it with the same Vallejo asphalt that I had used to make the road bed earlier. And this blended it in just fine. Now I worked my way around one end of the layout, and then I started on the other end. And I found that having my flashlight held in a tripod over the area I was working helped a lot in being able to see what I was doing. Then once I worked on the other side, I finally got to where the ballast met up. And that was a job that I was happy to be done with. The second thing I had to do was cut away a little bit of the Cork Roaded where we had a couple of freight houses. We had put down Cork Roaded on our freight tracks, but that interfered with the loading docks getting right up close to the track. So I had to cut that area away, and now both of the freight stations are able to get close enough to the track that they could unload boxcars. Here's a tip. Think twice before putting Cork Roaded in your yard. You might regret it. Now the next thing that I tackled was adding some trees to the layout. Conowingo Models sells this great line of Moose Creek trees, and I got a package of 10 of them. And they're really easy to put in, and they look really great. And they filled out a lot of the areas on the layout. Now being a temporary layout, they get removed every time we pack it up, but we have the holes where they can go back in. One big upgrade this time around was Gates oil, which was donated to us by Mud Creek Models. Just like many of the other structures on our layout came from Mud Creek and from Motrack Models. I did a video about building this a couple of months ago on my channel. The original idea was that it could fit in this unused corner, but my idea for it was to be a gas station that had stopped pumping gas, and it was going to have a gravel parking lot and the concrete pad still in front of it, and there just wasn't room for it in this corner. So I found an area on the layout that had just had some trees, was like a little park, and I figured I could put it there if we paved over the park. Luckily, when I had put down most of the grass, I used a water-based glue. So by getting it wet and letting it soak for a little while, I was able to easily scrape most of it off. There was a couple places where I had used a different glue, and that stuff was a little harder to get off. But eventually I got it flat enough that the building was going to be able to sit there. Then I positioned it where I wanted it to have a gravel parking lot and a gas pump pad in front of it. I also picked up a couple of propane storage tanks because my building was going to be a suburban propane dealer now as well. I used masking tape to mark off where the building and the tanks were going to go. That way I was able to put down glue and then spread some regular fine gray ballast, which was going to work as gravel in the parking lot. Now, I printed out some suburban propane signs, and these were going to go on the tanks, and I already had them put on my building. I also printed out and applied some of the hazard and warning signs that would go on storage tanks. Then I bent a couple pieces of wire, and they were going to feed it into the ground. I'm not sure what kind of fittings these would really have. And I also made the concrete gas pump pad that would have been left over when this had originally been a gas station. And I put a suburban propane sign on it to advertise the company. Then I put everything in place to see how it looked. I knew I was going to have a little foliage around it, so I started gluing some of this in place around where the building would be. I especially wanted the weeds on the concrete pad. This was what had given me the idea in the first place. My story behind this was that Gates Oil had originally been a gas station, but when the new Gulf station moved into town, he couldn't compete, so he stopped selling gas, but he got a suburban propane franchise, so he was still an oil fuel dealer. I put everything in place to see how it looked. Being a portable layout, none of these buildings are glued down. They just get put in place every time we set it up. I also wanted to show the other end of it, where we have a farm scene. And this was done, except there was one thing I wanted to add, and that was a fence going around the propane storage tanks. So I found Woodland Scenics sold a chain link fence, and I thought I'd go ahead and get that and put it in place. I laid everything out and decided what pieces I wanted to go where. And it's a nice little fence. Given that it's in N scale, some of the supports might be a little oversized, but it still looks pretty good. I had to poke holes in the foam and then glue the fence supports in place. I had to hold it upright while the glue was drying, but once it was all done, it came out looking pretty good. And the last thing I wanted to do was kind of fill that open area next to the building. So I had a little 3D printed set of details. I painted them up and put them in place. And now this finishes all of this summer's upgrades to our club's N-scale layout. It'll now go back in storage until we go to our first train show in the fall. And it'll probably hit 5 or 6 different train shows this winter, all of them supporting our scholarship program. If you'd like more information on that, visit our club's website. And I want to thank you for watching this video and to see all of the upgrades that we've done to our layout this year.